talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got bronchitis. I got bronchitis. You ever see that? You ever see that YouTube video? Ain't nobody got time for that. Anyway, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got bronchitis. So it's the weirdest thing, you know. We had a stomach bug a couple of weeks ago, and it went through our whole house. And Joe, you even got it. And then around here in the station, the other talent around here that's in some of these other studios, they have it too. So, not the stomach bug. I'm sorry, bronchitis. I don't know what I'm saying this morning. It's not like I slept the best last night, folks. Welcome to the program, though. We still got a great show for you, and you need to know something. You need to know a few things about today's show. Number one, if you're scratching your head already, and you're wondering what you're going to get your special someone, your family, your loved ones for Christmas, if you're wondering, we got some suggestions for you today, okay? That's number one. Number two, coming up at the bottom of this hour, we're going to introduce you to a man by the name of Don Spencer. Don Spencer is affiliated with an organization to our west, our neighbors to the west in the state of Oklahoma. It's a little Second Amendment group, and I say little, it's a good-sized Second Amendment group called OK2A. That's OK2A. We'll be talking with Don about, in our Patriots of Act 746 segment this morning, about some of the things that the people of Oklahoma are trying to do at a local level to secure and promote their Second Amendment rights. So that's at the bottom of this hour. Then at the top of the next hour, we're going to be talking with Rabbi Ari Spiro. We're going to be talking about what was said at this France, or over in France, with Macron. Talking about how nationalism is the opposite of patriotism, or nationalism is treason, he said, and now he's calling for a European Union army. He listen to this. This is crazy to me. He said, no. Macron called for it, and then Merkel seconded it, okay? Now, think about this for a second. You have France saying we don't need nationalism because it could resurrect old demons of World War I. And then Macron calls for a European army, and the Chancellor of Germany says, that sounds like a good idea. What is going on? On Monday, I told you this is clearly projection, where they project the very thing they're guilty of on their opponents. We see this in politics at all levels, but here, is nobody going to say it? I'll say it. Yeah, I don't think Germany needs to be calling for any armies outside of their own borders. I'm pretty sure it's still too soon. Is it still too soon? I think it's still too soon for that. The telephone number this morning, 870-275-9799. We'll be talking at 7 with Rabbi Ari Spiro about that, which is crazy times. And then at the bottom of the next hour, State Representative Dan Sullivan will be with us in studio. I'm going to go over, I'm sure, a bunch of stuff, probably talk about the midterm elections, things like that. But also, I got an interesting selection of audio clips from a Medicaid subcommittee where he was questioning DHS here in Arkansas, and some really good work being done, trying to get to the bottom, trying to hold some of these agencies accountable to what we, the taxpayers, are required by law to give them our money. And so he's trying to hold them accountable. It's really, really good stuff. I'm sure they don't appreciate it very much, but anyway, we'll be talking to him about all that. So we got a jam-packed show for you this morning. Jam-packed. I want to start with, it's really strange I even have to say this. There's some people that misunderstand the First Amendment. And we've talked about this before. Some people claim that the First Amendment means that you can have no religious convictions in public life. That is somehow the state. Like if you're a public official and you have religious convictions and you live those out, or better yet, from your official capacity, actually reference God or higher power. There are people out there who believe that if that offends them, then you're violating their First Amendment, and that is somehow the government sanctioning a religion. And that's obviously not freedom, and that's obviously not what our founding fathers fought for, just logically if you think about it. But even if you don't want to have the debate without any, if you want to have the debate like that, that's fine. But we have a mountain of supporting evidence that suggests the founding fathers obviously thought it was okay to have a moral compass, have a belief in God in public life with public officials, and that wasn't a violation of the Establishment Clause. And so you have a misunderstanding of the First Amendment when it comes to religious freedom in this country. I'm hoping the new Supreme Court's going to set that straight. Matter of fact, they're going to hear the case on whether or not a Christian war memorial, with a cross on it, is the government endorsing a religion. I'd be interested to hear what they have to say about that. Then you have another misunderstanding of the First Amendment, because there are 5 freedoms in the First Amendment. It's not just religion. You have the freedom of the press. That's one of them, one of the 5. And apparently, CNN believes that all of us are entitled to a White House press pass. And I say that because I'm just doing a little deduction, or I guess a little deducing. They must believe that we're all entitled to it, or else they wouldn't be now suing the White House, because the White House revoked, or suspended rather, Jim Acosta's press pass. And now they're suing the White House. And they're doing this to get ratings, period. Just so you know, that's the only reason they're doing this. CNN and Jim Acosta's lawsuit, this is from the Daily Caller. They talk about how wrong they got the lawsuit, how they basically are misleading or lying about what actually happened. By the way, there's a rumor out there that there's some doctored video going around that shows Jim Acosta, that it was enhanced when he basically touched that woman, kind of karate chopped that woman. Get your hands off me. And the fake news is telling you that that's a doctored video, when the only thing that's doctored about it is that it's just zoomed in so you can see more clearly what he did. They're claiming it was sped up and all this other nonsense to make it look more. No, it wasn't. It wasn't doctored, by the way. It was not doctored. You had Jimmy Kimmel talking about how Sarah Huckabee Sanders should be fired because she was referencing a doctored video. It was not a doctored video, but they had to lie and tell you that it was, because they knew Jim Acosta looks bad. By the way, Anderson Cooper and CNN, they wouldn't even show the video of Jim Acosta spatting the woman's hand away or chopping her, down by the elbow. This is my microphone. This is from the party that went nuts, for 3 weeks over Christine Blasey Ford and her accusations. And it just shows you that they're total hypocrites. The Daily Caller goes down the list here and says that there's a few things that this lawsuit has gotten demonstrably wrong when it comes to suing CNN and Jim Acosta. Yes, Joe?
I had something to say about this.
Yep.
The video specifically. I've seen the video. I've seen multiple versions of the video. I can understand.
It's not doctored, though, right?
No, it's not doctored.
Not at all.
I understand what they mean when they say that it's doctored.
Well,
because here's the thing. It's not doctored. It's the video that was used by Sarah Huckabee Sanders was a recording of a GIF, and the file got moved multiple times, which means there's quality loss.
Yes.
Which means it can look doctored.
Yes.
But it is not.
Right.
It is just a poor usage of a poor video, and it's of no one's fault because they're like, okay, this must be a first-hand video because it's a video.
Well, a GIF is not a video; it's an image.
Yes.
It's an image file, and you can lose some frames per second. Is what I understand it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it not just that. It was a GIF that was moved in a different way, which means there was more data loss and more quality loss, which means it can look doctored.
Right, but it wasn't like it was deceptive.
There was
let's doctor it and make it look like he hit her when he touched this woman. Matter of fact, Jimmy Kimmel went out and said he didn't even touch her.
In the sense of,
are you kidding me? He
clearly
touched her. My goodness, why? They really are unhinged right now. The media and the libs.
In the sense of the narrative they are trying to spin, there was no malicious intent behind the video itself. Like them putting it out there saying this is what happened. They were just trying to make sure everyone knew this is what happened. They used a poor quality video, GIF, whatever. Yeah, they did. That's not on them. They just used whatever they had readily available.
Right.
They could have probably taken a little bit longer and gotten a better video, yes. But again, they were trying to get the news out there before the mainstream media could spin it the way they wanted to.
And that's what they call it. They do this with James O'Keefe. They say he, deceptively edits. Of course, his reporting is edited, but then he releases the raw video as well. He's not telling you something happening in the video that doesn't actually happen, versus what the libs do. So the first part of this lawsuit. In point 33, CNN's lawsuit, CNN claimed that Acosta started his exchange with a question about one of President Trump's statements during the midterm campaign, namely whether a caravan making its way to the United States from Central America constitutes an invasion of the country. Now, of course, this is not at all what Jim Acosta did. Acosta actually started by saying, Mr. President, I want to challenge you on some things. CNN also claimed that the president declined to respond to Acosta's point, which is also a lie, because the president clearly, if you remember, said, well, we have a difference of opinion on what the definition of the word invasion is. We have a difference of an opinion. That should have been the end of it. Jim Acosta, what a terrible, terrible reporter. The lawsuit claims all reporters used the mic to ask questions. In the aforementioned part of the lawsuit, CNN insisted that Acosta was speaking through a handheld microphone, as did all of the White House journalists who asked questions. However, CNN analyst April Ryan shouted questions at the president later in the press conference, despite not having a microphone. In fact, Ryan's questions interrupted the Daily Caller's Sagar Enjeti, who had a microphone at the time and was called on by the president. Number 3, the lawsuit ignores Acosta's repeated interruptions, refuses to acknowledge Acosta physically prevented intern from taking the mic when we have video evidence of that. Look at that. Of course he touched her. How can Jimmy Kimmel, let's scroll down. How can the left and people like Jimmy Kimmel say he didn't touch her? Look at that photo. My goodness. No, it was a doctored photo.
This is where I wish I had a telestrator. Like, contact was made here, here, and here.
Yeah, like the sports guys, the football guys do.
Yeah.
That'd be funny to do, like a play-by-play.
And then it's like, okay, red flag on the play.
That's great. Anyway, so just check that out. Apparently, CNN thinks that all Americans and your First Amendment, my First Amendment, Joe, your First Amendment, we're entitled to a White House hard pass. I mean, is this nuts? All right, so today over at ConduitNews.com, we are launching the brand new Conduit News store. That is right. You can go right now to ConduitNews.com. Check out the Conduit News store. You just click on store there, right there at the top of the page. Go to ConduitNews.com, click on store. It's going to take you to this little site where you got all these, apparently my face is on a mug. Look at that. My mug is on a mug. My mug's on a mug. All right, so, but yeah, that's true. Yeah, the mug.
We're renaming this one to the mug.
The mug. So that is one you can get. It says Conduit News on it. Here's my favorite, though. Go show my favorite, Joe. The Marble Palace mug. Look at this one. Yeah, you guys are going to want this. You guys are going to want to get a set of like 6 for your household. Right? It says Conduit News, real insights for Arkansas. And it says, but first taxes. Now, this is a play on the mugs that you see, but first coffee, right? But see, this is the Marble Palace mug. They don't have time for coffee. But first, taxes. So check this out at conduitnews.com right now. They'll make great gifts. You can buy early. Matter of fact, that says that you can get 15% off if you use that promo code there. Yeah, Weekday Shops. Yeah, just check it out. Go to conduitnews.com, click on store, and then we'll highlight a few other mugs. There you see the Mother Government mug. Oh, they don't see it. Okay, yeah. Well, anyway, we'll highlight a few others throughout the show. Check them out. Again, conduitnews.com, click on store. And number one, we're giving you some pretty good novelty items here. But number two, this is a way that you guys can support what it is that we are doing, because it's not free to bring you the news every day as we attempt to do. All right, we're going to take a break. Don't go anywhere, folks. Back in a minute.
Since we did that, the agencies are putting their appropriation request much better in line with what their actual spending is. And there's been a couple agencies that have come in where Representative Dotson, who's actually chairing the committee now, has told agencies, for example, the Heritage Department came to us a couple weeks ago with theirs, and Representative Dotson, because of a lot of questions from the members and because of this initiative, he told them basically they needed to roll their sleeves up, sharpen their pencils, and go back and come back with a appropriation request that was better in line with what their actual spending was. And, they came back about a week and a half later, and they knocked $1.5 million off their appropriation request.
Wow, $1.5 million or $5 million?
$1.5 million.
Okay. So
and
that sounds pretty. I mean, it sounds to me like, first of all, what were they asking? Do you remember how much more they were asking for than what they had spent?
Hey man, you got any of that marble rock?
Yeah, I've got the hookup.
Thanks. I need a fix real bad. I'm itching to grow some government.
How much you need?
I'm gonna need a taxpayer's dime bag.
No problem, sir. 1 taxpayer dime of marble rock. Enjoy.
Thanks, man. They don't call it Little Rock for nothing. Am I right?
Did you know your state representative or state senator may be addicted to growing government? The drug is called marble rock, and too much of it will cause marble fever. Watch for the warning signs. Does your legislator suddenly display a lack of humility when faced with basic questions? Does he or she suddenly develop hubris and pride that was not present during the campaign for office? These are signs they might be smoking the terrible drug, marble rock. The solution? Detox. Vote for detox. Vote to send them home for their own good. Warning! Some politicians once voted out of office will not go home and stay in Little Rock to get their fix by lobbying, also known as the Burris Syndrome.
PHP Parody. Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
That's me. I have bronchitis. Excuse me. All right, so real quick, I want to highlight this story for a second. Oh, by the way, if you read anything today, we'll cover this later too. If you read anything today, you need to check out this story. It's over at Conduit News. House of Representatives changed forever. Need to read this, courtesy of Conduit for Action, David Ferguson, with some incredible insight about what we're facing this coming January here in the state of Arkansas. Washington Post reporting that the Vatican tells U.S. bishops not to vote on proposals to tackle sexual abuse. Spurns outside investigations. Huh. Okay. You know, the last time I talked about the Catholic Church was a couple of weeks ago, and this scandal. Well, this scandal that's just really been decades in the making. And we got a phone call about it, and I offended somebody with what I said because I was casting a pretty wide net, and I don't mean to do that. I mean, I know there are Catholics out there that don't think it's okay to molest people. I get that. And honestly, to me, it goes without saying. It's the same thing. It's just like I know there are Muslims out there that don't believe in blowing up buildings, or putting an AK-47 on and shooting a bunch of people. I get that. I get that. But here's the thing, and this is why I'm so frustrated with this. You know, the Vatican basically tells U.S. bishops to not vote on a resolution to tackle their problems, and they're saying no, let us do it first. This is just maddening. This is madness. There is no more slack. There is no longer leash. There is no more benefit of the doubt. This is just how I feel. I think this is how a lot of people feel. This is some sort of systemic problem, and it needs to be addressed. But to act like that there's still some benefit of the doubt to be given here, there is no benefit of the doubt as far as the public's concerned. The people who are not Catholics, I don't think there is any benefit of the doubt. And again, I know there are Catholics who are really upset about all of this, and who have not, who don't condone it or are so far from it. I understand that. I get that. But I think we've got to take a step back and just kind of look at what's going on and just have a little self-reflection. I mean, I think everybody should be very understanding of the fact that the public is pretty sick of this. We're sick of hearing about this. What's supposed to be a safe space, and people who are looked to as spiritual and religious leaders are taking advantage of our youngest and most vulnerable in society. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And so I know I have offended some Catholics with some of my comments, but it's just because every time the Catholic Church is in the headlines in my lifetime, I'm 34 years old, you know what the story's going to be. You know what the story's about. That's a bad thing. That's a very, very bad thing. You know what? The left is constantly fighting against what they call Islamophobia. Do you know why they're fighting against Islamophobia? Because while the amount of Muslims who are actually terrorists percentage-wise is low, there's a lot of Muslims in the country. And so we're talking about millions and millions of people who think it's acceptable to be violent in order to get what they want theologically, foisted on a population. And you know what? That there's a stigma that's attached to that, because people are always a little bit, this is just the way it is. Even remember when Juan Williams got in a big amount of trouble when he said that he feels uncomfortable when someone in Muslim garb comes on an airplane. Remember that? He got in huge trouble. He got fired from NPR for saying that. You remember that? I guess that's my point when it comes to this constant Catholic pedophilia scandal after scandal after scandal. At some point, no one is saying all Catholics are condoning this, or all Catholics or all bishops or all priests are like this. No one is saying that. But there is now a cultural stigma about it, and I just don't understand why anybody would be surprised at that at this point. And I feel like the safety of our kids is worth extra suspicion.
They were asking, well, it was at $1.5 million is the authority that they were asking for. The original number, I don't remember, but it's over, I think it's like over $100 million budget, because they've got, the Department of Heritage has several sub-departments, and So all those appropriations, they add up. But anyways, some of the departments of higher ed, some of the community colleges, some of those were we came back in, tens of millions of dollars. And so overall, we're not through with the budget process yet. We've got this week and next week. And we've already got them dropped. $2.8 billion is how much appropriation authority we've reined in just the last couple of weeks.
We're talking with State Representative Stephen Meeks. It seems like this is certainly a move in the right direction, Stephen, because if it's capped at 10%, and they do have an opportunity to get more from a grant or something like that, they don't just get it; they have to now come back before you. So it's like, well, we're asking once. And you know what? We're going to have to ask twice, which actually is you guys exercising more authority and being a check on this executive agencies. But
right.
Here's a question though that and this may I may not this may not be in line with what you're thinking, but why don't departments roll over any extra money that they would get and just not request more? You know what I mean? Can you address that? This is just me talking from somebody who has to budget my own household,
Sure. There's actually two different, those are almost apples and oranges, because we do allow some agencies to roll over what's called a carryover fund, and it depends on the mission of the agency whether they're allowed to do that. A lot of them, any excess revenue they have either comes back to the Treasury or just stays in the Treasury, and it doesn't go out to them. But when they roll it over, then that rollover itself then also becomes subject to the appropriation. So, for example, let's say it's an agency that has a $100 million a year budget, and at the end of the year they've got $10 million left over. So what ends up happening is they roll that $10 million over, and then now from the Treasury, they may only need $90 million to complete their mission that year. So it ends up saving the taxpayers' money.
Right.
But that still falls under the appropriation level. So if we cap the appropriation at $110 million, that doesn't mean that that $10 million they've rolled over, they suddenly go out on a spending spree and spend more than what the appropriation authority allows. They're still capped at that appropriation authority.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. I want to introduce you to Mr. Don Spencer. Don is from a great group that advocates for the Second Amendment from our neighbors to the west in the state of Oklahoma. It's called OK2A. Don, welcome to the program, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
I am doing well. I'm doing well, Don. So tell me just a little bit about yourself. How'd you get involved with an organization like OK2A?
Well, believe it or not, about 9 years ago, I was taking an armed security guard class at a VOTEC, and I learned that for me to take the armed security guard class, for me to leave my firearm in the car was a felony. And I thought, that's kind of stupid to be able to take an armed security guard class, but it's a felony to have your gun left out in your car. And so that's what got me started. I became an complete certified instructor for the state of Oklahoma. And just said, these stupid laws have got to be fixed. And then as I learned and got into it, I didn't realize just how absolutely terrible Oklahoma law was and still is. And since 2010, we've had over 90 changes in state law, the repeal of 7 felonies for the peaceful carry, and the repeal of numerous misdemeanors. So just got involved that way. And 2 years ago, I became the president of Oklahoma Second Amendment Association. And we just keeping our head down and just keep plowing forward, just trying to get our rights back that should have never been taken away.
Wow. So what do you think right now constitutes the rights the rights that have been taken away? Meaning, is that what's the status of your laws right now? Do you guys have concealed carry with a permit? I mean, what if you want to carry a gun? What do you have to do if you're in Oklahoma?
We have carry of a handgun with a permit. It can be open or concealed. Since 1907, when Oklahoma became a state, Oklahoma outlawed, completely ignored the Second Amendment, and it says that you cannot carry a pistol, rifle, or shotgun on your person, whether it's loaded or unloaded. And that's been the law since 1907, and that's what we've been trying to change. Currently, you can carry a handgun with a license, but our laws are still so bad that if you buy a shotgun from the gun store, you can legally transport it home. But if you decide to carry it across the street to show your neighbor, even if it's in the box in 3 pieces, it's a misdemeanor crime still today.
Wow.
That's how Oklahoma laws are. Last year, we got repealed a felony, which was the worst gun law in the nation. And I do not exaggerate that one bit. It was that even if you owned your own private bus and were on your own private property and you got on your own bus with your own gun, it was a $10,000 10-year felony. And we got that repealed last year. And it took 6 years to do it.
Wow.
That's some stuff we've worked on. Also, now you can legally leave your gun in your car while you're at a public school. You can carry a gun in a private school with their permission. The teachers can. It used to be a felony for even a teacher to carry a gun in a private school. We've got that repealed. And that's just like the law. In Oklahoma, even with all the advancements we've had, we're still in the bottom third of gun laws in the country.
Yeah, this is amazing to me because, when Arkansans look at Oklahoma in terms of, the right-left battle that goes on, I think a lot of people would look at Oklahoma and say, okay, you guys are more conservative than we are. But that doesn't seem to be the case when it comes to gun laws. I mean, we now have constitutional carry over here, Don. I'm sure you've heard about it.
Yes, we've heard about it, and people keep asking us, why don't we have it here? It was because the Republican governor vetoed it this session in 2000.
What were his reasons? So you got it past the state legislature over there. What was the governor's reasons for vetoing it?
She felt that it was still a safety issue, although she would not take in consideration that the way Oklahoma we have our laws written, that if you're from a constitutional carry state that's recognized by the state of Oklahoma, you can carry with your driver's license in the state, but that does not apply to an Oklahoma resident. Again, that's how stupid our Oklahoma gun laws are.
Okay, hang on. So you're telling me that if I, an Arkansan, who am, a resident of Arkansas, have concealed carry privileges here, or rights, so let's just say, I say privilege, I shouldn't have said privilege, I can go to Oklahoma, and the government of Oklahoma will let me open carry there or concealed carry without a permit just because I'm from Arkansas?
As soon as the Attorney General recognizes it, and I've not had the discussion with him because we just had the election last week, but yes, I'm looking to add Arkansas to that. But let me take a state that is recognized, such as Kansas.
Okay.
A Kansas resident can drive into Oklahoma legally carrying a loaded handgun, and it's perfectly legal, provided they can legally purchase or own the firearm. But an Oklahoma resident cannot. That's
wow.
Oklahoma.
That is strange.
Well, but that's part of, in 2011, we worked to get that passed, and we worked to get it passed because we knew it would lay the groundwork for constitutional carry. Because we can say, look, it's stupid. All these outside states can carry, but our own residents can't. And even with that argument, our governor, Mary Fallon, decided that she listened to higher education. She listened to all the places that use our tax dollars and to lobby against us, and she listened to those entities to veto Senate Bill 1212.
Wow. So a Republican governor listening to people who are kind of left of center, that's frustrating. We've experienced that here. So
let me tell you how I do it on our stuff. I tell them people, and they look at me like I'm cross-eyed, but I tell them Republicans are the problem. Republicans are the problem because we have a supermajority in the House, a supermajority in the Senate, and a Republican governor. and you can't get constitutional carry. So that we don't even need a Democrat. You cannot blame a Democrat. There's no need even going there. And again, we couldn't even get them to go for an override of the veto because they had let out a session to quit because of other political reasons related to that. But you keep saying Oklahoma conservative state. If that's the case, U.S. District 5 state U.S. Representative Steve Russell, who was the guy that was in on capturing Saddam Hussein, was just defeated by a Democrat socialist in the state of Oklahoma. So I actually would say Oklahoma is on the trend of being like Colorado 30 years ago. It was the reddest state in the union, and look what they are now.
And why do you think that is? Do you think that's because the Republicans are leaving their base? And so, because the Democrats are going to vote for a Democrat every time, there's no way to placate them with like moderate Republicanism. They're still going to vote for the Democrat.
Well, it's a combination of both. One, you have I call it the liberal cancer moving into the state, and all they do, they leave their Colorado and they leave California because of high tax. They come to Oklahoma, but they bring their politics with them, even though they're escaping that exact same reason of the high taxes. So then they come here, they vote liberal, they move to liberal areas to secure those up, and even into not so liberal areas. And so you've got that plus the Republican base that does not have a spine. They don't have leadership to help them hold a spine together. So it's a combination of the two. Plus, it's education. The amount of people that have no idea that the Second Amendment, they know it's in the Constitution, but they do not understand the foundation of it. They don't even understand the foundation of the Constitution itself. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. I'll ask a person, they'll say, why don't we have constitutional carry? And I'll ask them, well, who's your state rep? Who's your state senator? Well, I don't know. I said, well, that's why we don't have it. You're not involved. And then it doesn't take that many people to get involved to get these things changed. But it's the greatest threat to the Second Amendment is voter apathy.
I think that's the greatest threat to our freedoms generally. I totally agree. We're talking with Don Spencer, the head of the Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, OK2A. You can go to ok2a.org. You mentioned these people, Don, that are leaving liberal states whose policies don't work, and so they're going to conservative states whose policies do work, but they're not changing their political views. So they're essentially leeches, these people, and they're going to leech off of the success of limited government ideas, but they're going to then continue to vote out the people who have given them the environment that's attractive, and that's how I would describe them, as leeches. And so I don't know what we do. I don't know what we do about that. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I think you're kind to call them leeches because leeches can actually serve a purpose. I call it cancer because it just doesn't go away and it just spreads. And it's education, and it's very frustrating because our Oklahoma House of Representatives has 41 new members, freshman members coming in. And we've already identified out of that 41, that's Democrats and Republicans, 11 of the Republicans are outright blatant rhinos. They couldn't even get, and several of them had an F rating on the OK2A score and also the NRA score. And these are the people that are coming in to represent Republicans and be in the House of Representatives for the state of Oklahoma. So when people say, why can't we get constitutional carry in our gun rights back? Well, it's because of the Republicans, just like this.
You mentioned the NRA. Is the NRA a problem? Do they actually want constitutional carry?
NRA, this is what when I 2010, the first thing I figured out is, if we write these bills and we say, hey, NRA, come in here and help us support them, we figured out pretty quick that they would do it. So last year we had 34 gun bills introduced, and we got 5 signed by the governor. The year before that, we had 36 gun bills introduced and had 9 signed by the governor. So the NRA, for us, and we've got a very good working relationship with them, have been very supportive. And I would not do anything I could to tarnish that because, like I say, we write the bills, and they come in and they help us with the muscle on them. But we've grown so well that our own muscle may be as equivalent or close to it as the NRA.
Well, and that's good. And that's the fact that your state organization is getting just as much influence statewide, if not maybe more than the actual NRA. That actually is a really, really good thing. And I'm glad that the NRA has helped you guys, roll back some of these, gun restrictions in your state. From my standpoint, I think the NRA serves a purpose. I think it's generally good. I just feel I've seen what happened, in Arkansas politics, and it seems to me there's a little bit of sometimes of an aversion to unrestricted, unlicensed, pure Second Amendment constitutional carry, and that's why I asked that question. So,
I
go ahead.
think that because the Oklahoma Rifle Association, which used to be a part of the NRA, worked against open carry, worked against constitutional carry, and so when I made the complaint to the headquarters at the NRA basically quit its what do you call it? Whenever they're together, it's umbrella of the Oklahoma Rifle Association, and the Oklahoma Rifle Association now is virtually of no value at all.
Okay.
I don't. They haven't.
Wow.
So
Wow.
they've been good separations and stuff like that. But again, we OK2A, we're on offense. We stay on offense because I prefer offense, and we're going to keep moving this thing forward so you don't have to play as much defense. And I've learned that early on, and keep bills in representatives' hands and senators' hands to introduce. Because here's what we do at OK2A, and again, I figured this out early. You identify the problem. Then you show, here is how we fix the problem. And then you support the legislator with everything possible to make sure that gets happened. And those guys and ladies eat that up because they go back to their district and say, hey, we're OK2A. I have an A+ grade. Here's why. And we actually had one legislator last year that went back with 3 signed bills by the governor, major bills by the governor in 1 year, which is absolutely crazy. Usually you're doing good anything on our desk. So, and again, that's what we identify the problem. We say this is how you correct the problem. And who would have ever thought some guy from southeast Logan County would be who couldn't even pass an English class in high school would be writing gun bills?
Wow, that's really, really interesting. Well, it sounds like you guys are a grassroots organization that is doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. When it comes to having these relationships with these legislators, supporting them. Isolating, finding the ones that support what you guys want to accomplish. I want to go back to something you said, Dawn, about our Attorney General here in the state of Arkansas. What kind of process is that? You mentioned that she, Leslie Rutledge, would have to officially say that we have constitutional carry in some capacity in order for Oklahoma to recognize our right to carry in Oklahoma?
Right. There has to be a reciprocity agreement between the attorney generals of both states.
I got you.
How it is right now. And it's just, with no offense, that Arkansas couldn't figure out for sure till, a couple of weeks ago whether they had constitutional carry. So we never pushed it in Oklahoma. But I will be doing that now. We got the election behind us, and I will be contacting the AG, and we'll probably have to have one of our state senators actually write the official letter for it, which is not a big deal. Just to make the request. So that's what we do. Now, also, if you can let me expand one other thing. We go to all these troubles to make sure we're getting our rights back, but then we still have municipalities and political subdivisions of the municipalities violating our rights. And in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there is a park that's called the Gathering Place that they just put $465 million into it, and it's on public property, but they decided to ban guns. And we said, no, that's not going to work. And they actually removed some people for open carrying pistols while they were in and around the park, not even in the park. And so we basically, OK2A, made the threat, okay, we're going to sue you, and under our state preemption, we're going to sue the city, we're going to sue the park, we're going to sue every person, that even the police officers that illegally remove these people from the park. And so since then, the city of Tulsa said, you know what? We don't think we want to get sued, and we don't think we want our police officers getting sued, so we will not be enforcing any such rule again. So that's what, and we're still going to have legislation to help clean up the fact that they can't do it. But again, we go to all this trouble, and you still have these municipalities decide that, you know what, that's we think we can still violate your rights. And OK2A says, no, you're not.
Yeah.
So that's what we keep doing.
Yeah, you got to watch it on all levels of government. All levels of government. Hey,
right.
Don Spencer, this has been great. I really appreciate you providing us the window to kind of peer into what grassroots organizations are doing over in Oklahoma concerning the Second Amendment. It gives us a lot of ideas over here, and I hope we can continue to work together and just really kind of borrow off of each other's ideas.
I got one more thing to add real quick.
Yes.
I was asked here if Oklahoma was going to, or OK2A was going to endorse a governor for a person for governor, and I said yes, Jan Morgan in Arkansas. So that's how involved we are.
Wow.
Good guys too. All right.
Well, hey, I appreciate it, Don. Don Spencer, thank you so much for being with us. And again, your website, if you guys want to find out more, ok2a.org. Don, thank you so much, sir.
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yes. Hey, folks, I want to remind you that this segment was brought to you by the Patriots of Act 746 on a mission to educate Arkansans about their gun rights. You go to Facebook.com and search in the search bar for Patriots of Act 746 and ask to join the group. It's a closed group, 17,000 members strong. Become part of the online sensation today. Search for Patriots of Act 746 on Facebook. We're going to take a break. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
So that prevents them from going out and, you know, hey, we've got an extra $10 million, so we're going to blow it on whatever. They still have to, it still has to fall in that. And one of the things I'm also noticing is there's been a change in the mindset. You know, I heard one of the directors talk about we're trying to rein in our mission creep, and those are things we didn't, you know, when I was first elected and we were under Democrat state control, those are things I never heard.
So define mission creep. Define mission creep for the audience.
Mission creep, what that is you know, a state agency is tasked to do a certain mission, but over time they develop programs that start getting into other areas, and before long, the tasks that they're doing are well beyond the scope of what they originally were set up. And so some of the directors are trying to rein that back in and say, you know, no.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Over at conduitnews.com, David Ferguson writing that he's feeling nostalgic. He writes, having worked for the Arkansas General Assembly for nearly 32 years, I have a lot of respect for the legislative process, the legislators I worked with, the legislative staff, and the people who go to the state capitol to express their opinions. In particular, this morning, I'm thinking about the drastic changes in the House of Representatives, which give the Speaker of the House huge power. The Speaker of the House has always been a powerful office. The Speaker was powerful, even though the position was largely an honor based on seniority, even in the 1980s and most of the 1990s. The Speaker had few appointments, primarily to the powerful Rules Committee and the House Management Committee and to some other positions. With only a few representatives owing allegiance to the Speaker, power was distributed among the committee chairs, who obtained their positions based on seniority. This meant the House was much harder to control by one person or one group. Once in the 1990s, freshmen joined by others were able to pull a coup and block all budget bills until they got a seat at the table to decide how the budget would be made. That couldn't happen under the current power structure. Often the House was referred to as a body of 100 equals. I liked that notion because my role as a legislative employee was to give equal assistance to every legislator, the powerful and the least powerful. Some of my counterparts, he writes, in legislatures in other states were envious of how the Arkansas legislature worked because in their own states they worked under heavy-handed restrictions of a powerful speaker or committee chair. A staffer in one state, can't remember which state, told me he could not even draft a bill for a legislator unless the proposed bill was first approved by leadership. With the House rules changes over the last several years, you can't call the House a body of 100 equals anymore. It's a body made up of a speaker and 99 legislators who owe favors to the speaker. The first change in the 1990s was to give the speaker the power to appoint all committee chairs, vice chairs, and the subcommittee chairs. This rule change gave the speaker more appointments to pass out than there were representatives. Two excuses were used for this move. First was the existence of short-term limits. It was said seniority was no longer a good system because a person could only serve 3 two-year terms. Now they can serve 16 years. Second, the House was overwhelmingly Democrat, but Governor Mike Huckabee was Republican, and this division of power between the parties was used as an excuse to say you need a strong speaker to fight for the legislature against governors. In reality, House speakers and governors have been strong allies, and this relationship has served to help governors overcome dissent in the House. For example, it was House Speaker Davy Carter who called an unprecedented number of votes to eventually get approval for funding the Governor Mike Beebe's version of Obamacare Medicaid expansion. Eventually, Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum proposed giving the Speaker the power to appoint every member of every House committee instead of letting representatives pick. I knew the change, David Ferguson writes, would pass. They couldn't buck the Speaker because the Speaker already had so many representatives who owed him allegiance for appointments to leadership positions. Speaker Matthew Shepard, the new Speaker, will be the first Speaker to have the power to make all committee assignments. Imagine you're a lobbyist for a large Medicaid provider, and there have been rumblings that some legislators plan to pass restrictions on your industry. How do you fight it? The first step is to work with the Speaker to make sure the House Committee, Public Health, Welfare, and Labor is stacked with your friends. Or imagine you're the governor and you want to get a gas tax passed. You would work with the Speaker to make sure the committee membership is such that it will rubber stamp the proposal and send it to the House floor. And secondly, you would get the Speaker to put pressure on his many appointees to vote the right way. I read with interest some text messages in a court document in the trial of Senator John Woods, he writes. It appears to be the reflections of Representative Micah Neal, also convicted, as passed on to the FBI by his attorney. The message is from Neal's attorney to the special agent on January 13, 2017. We'll pick this up next hour, folks. It's up right now at conduitnews.com. The House has been changed forever, the power structure, not what it was 2 years ago. Back in a minute.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
that's not an area that we're supposed to be in. Either it belongs to other agency, or it's not something that we should be involved in. And so they're reining it back in, trying to focus on what the core mission of what they were designed to do. And a lot of that has to do with leadership from the governor's office down, and some of the people that he's put in place, some of his directors that have a more conservative view of what government is supposed to do.
So would you say that the mission creep, in the past, that can drive spending? Because what we see a lot of times, like you were saying with these agencies, it's almost like there's never a point where we say, okay, we funded X amount of dollars, mission accomplished. The agency accomplished what it set out to accomplish this year, but instead we kind of have this idea where no, we need more money next year than we got last year, and
right. And we're starting to see that culture change. And again, unfortunately, this doesn't make the news as much as I think it should. But we had another director of the pharmacy board, for example, came before us, and the number of pharmacists in the state is growing, and so because of that, the licensing and all that is becoming not more complicated, but there's more paperwork and more work to do because you're overseeing maybe twice as many pharmacists as there used to be. And what the agency decided to do is, instead of hiring more full-time people, is they're hiring during, say, the summer or spring break, they're hiring college interns to come in, let them help with that extra load for a couple of weeks. And what it does is it gets those college interns, gives them some, real-world working experience, gets them the chance to, get some work experience, and that saves the state from having to hire 2 or 3 or 4 new employees. And so that's another thing. Under the governor, we have reduced the size of the number of state employees by 1,500. And so as time goes on, we'll continue to work towards trying to make government more efficient at trying to get done the job that it's supposed to be doing.
We're talking with State Representative Stephen Meeks, State Representative for District 67. Now, that's what part of Faulkner County is that, Stephen?
It's Central Faulkner County. It's Western Conway, Greenbrier, Bologna.
Okay. So we're running out of time here. Last question, though. What do you see some of the big issues? I mean, I know you talked generally just now about shrinking government, but what do you see some of the big issues that are coming down the pike in this session? Some people talk roads. Others maybe look at some of the battles we fought last year with internet sales tax. Of course, now it's the Supreme Court says that's constitutional. What are your thoughts?
I think the roads and taxes are going to be two of the large things we're going to be talking about. For me, as chair of the technology committee, I'm looking at some of the ways that the state government, how the agencies are sharing data with each other, looking for efficiencies there, also cybersecurity. I'm also looking at, and unfortunately we probably won't have time to get into this, there's a new technology coming down the line that allows companies to microchip their employees, and I'm looking at putting in legislation in place to regulate how that happens so that an employee doesn't feel like they're forced to take it, that it remains a voluntary, when that technology does come to our state.
Yeah, that is terrifying. That is terrifying. Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I mean, there's places in Wisconsin that have already done it. There's an article in the BBC came out in the last day or so about companies that are looking to do that to employees in Britain. So, that technology is coming, and unless we get the rules in place for it now, it could create quite a mess. So,
well, I definitely want to research that. That is something else. State Representative Stephen Meeks, appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, sir, and talking about that appropriation process. It can be confusing to the average person who's not down there every day, and appreciate the work you're doing. Okay.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and happy belated Veterans Day to our veterans, and happy service people.
Absolutely. Stephen Meeks, everybody.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine here. We want you to be a part of the program. You can sound off over at the Facebook page if you want, facebook.com/Conduit News on that live video. I think the live video is doing better than it was yesterday in terms of some interruptions for some reason. Over at YouTube, please subscribe Conduit News. Click the little bell to receive notifications. We'd really appreciate it. Folks, I want to introduce you to Rabbi Ari Spiro. He's on the line. Rabbi Spiro, thanks so much for coming on this morning.
Hey, good morning to you.
Absolutely. Just want to remind everybody, you are the author of a book called Pushback, Reclaiming Our American Judeo-Christian Spirit. Tell us first a little bit about that book.
Well, it's mainly addressing the need for a national identity, and America has one. Unlike other countries that just happened to evolve, and basically they were surrounding the idea of a particular race, the United States was founded on particular ideas, and those ideas all emanate from the Judeo-Christian ethos. Now, that doesn't mean about a person going to church or synagogue twice a week or sitting around and praying all day. We're talking about a certain civic ethos that if you look in the Old and New Testament together, you'll see that there's a message there, which is liberty, individual responsibility, and accountability. The idea of judging a person based not on the group or the tribe he comes from, but as an individual. And then, of course, morality, knowing the difference between right and wrong, and also local control, that the people decide for themselves in just about 99% of the cases, as opposed to a king or a powerful government somewhere deciding for them. And that's been our formula for success and prosperity, fair play, and that's what we have to know is our identity. If you lose your identity as a family, a company, or a country, then you lose your formula for success.
Wow. I would agree with that. That is very, very well said. I'm curious, Rabbi Spiro, what are your thoughts on, and I was reading one of your latest articles. I was reading it over at CNS News. And you mentioned back on the 8th, after President Trump had his press conference, he was criticized because, of course, he said that he was a nationalist. They're trying to say he's a white nationalist or a white supremacist, but he clearly defines what that means. And it just means that he wants to make sure that America, gets the best deal possible. What are your thoughts on this concept of nationalism in America today?
Well, nationalism, especially if you're an American, is a good thing. If you believe America is a good country, and I do, then why wouldn't you be a nationalist? And if you believe in the American people, which I do, why wouldn't you want them to be placed first, America first? When it comes to jobs, the president should make a decision based on what would be best for the American people. It was just so obvious to me during the times of the Clintons and Democrat leadership, and even the Bushes, that there was a certain feeling that the United States worker, he can be sacrificed for this greater goal of making sure that all the countries in the world have jobs. So what we'll do is we'll allow many of our jobs, we'll trade them away here in America so that things can be produced in Pakistan or Indonesia or Mexico, China, and they they forgot about the American worker. So I think nationalism is a wonderful thing. Those people that are against nationalism, I really don't think they're that patriotic. It sort of like reminds me of Michelle Obama. When her husband won as president, she said, "Now I like America for the first time." Well, that's not nationalism. That basically is saying she doesn't like the country, but now that she's in power and she's getting all of these goodies, that she likes the country. So I think the president loves the country, the American people, and that's why he's a nationalist. And those that criticize him, I don't think that they love the country. They only love it when they're in charge, when they have that power. They love their power. And the last thing I'd just like to say is that when you accuse people who love the country of being white nationalists, then you're really exposing your bigotry. You're basically saying that the American people are Nazis. That's a bigotry. I love America. I'm a nationalist. I'm not a Nazi. My next-door neighbor who loves America, I don't consider him a Nazi. So those that make that charge, I think they're bigoted against the American people.
Yeah, you make a great point, and I would always try to remind people that this country is not a bigoted country generally. We elected Barack Hussein Obama to president not once but twice. We did it the first time. I'm sorry, my microphone seems to be malfunctioning here. We did it the first time 7 years after Muslim terrorists knocked down our buildings. I mean, what kind of country would do something like that if they were bigoted with a middle name like Hussein? You know what I mean? I mean that to me is incredible. Nobody gives America any credit at all for that. We're talking with Rabbi Ari Spiro, a national political analyst. He's an author. You mentioned patriotism. A couple days ago, Veterans Day, over in France, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, he seemed to think that nationalism is treason, he said. He said nationalism is not patriotism. What was your reaction to that, Rabbi Spiro?
Well, if you're a globalist, if you're a socialist, and you don't believe in borders, you don't believe in sovereign nations, then if that's your idea of patriotism, then of course you're against nationalism. But those of us that believe in sovereign nations, independent nations, nations with borders, with a distinct identity, certain distinct goals, nationalism is wonderful. But the Europeans, they don't think like we do. They're socialists. They have a thing called the EU, which Macron is very much in favor. And the EU basically says that all those countries in Europe, well, they dissolve their identity. They even dissolve the idea of borders. Once one of these Islamists or these jihadists get into one European country, then all of the European countries, they are in danger because there are no borders. That's the deal. Once you're in one European country, you can freely go over to the next. And so all of Europe is in danger once a jihadist passes into one of the European countries. So they are not nationalists. So he's redefined patriotism to mean basically internationalism or transnationalism, something just above nationalism. So this is a very European thing. And also, I think it's a matter of appeasement. He now has a Muslim population there, 6, 7, 8%, and he can't control it. It's out of control. And so basically, he's no longer fighting for a specific national identity. He's giving in and saying, well, whatever this new population brings to the table and how that determines the future of France, well, that's it. That's all fine because nationalism and national identity isn't good. I think it's an act of appeasement to this tremendous Islamic immigration that he no longer can control.
Well, he also went on to say, Rabbi Spiro, that, we don't need to resurrect the demons of old, specifically with World War I, the mechanized slaughter of so many people fighting that war, and that basically he was saying that Trump saying that he's a nationalist is potentially resurrecting those demons. Then a couple of days later, the French president says that it'd be a good idea to have a European army, and then the Chancellor of Germany backs him up and says, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. And I just think to myself, wait, didn't he just say that we don't need to resurrect these demons of the past? It kind of seems a little hypocritical to me.
Well, sure, because the main purpose was to humiliate President Trump. And he feels free. Macron feels free to do that because you have all these powerful left-wing people in this country that want the president to be humiliated. See, I think that if Macron thought that by humiliating the president, after all, what Macron did was terrible. The president was a guest in France. And if you're a host, you don't spotlight and try to embarrass your guests. So I thought that was very crude on the part of Macron. But he was able to do it because he knows that in this country, if it's Nancy Pelosi or it's the Clintons or it's the Obamas, they're cheering him on to humiliate the president. They want to do anything they can to weaken and destroy the president. So I think that he was able to do that because he knows that many of the powers to be in America want him to embarrass the president. So, of course, it ends up to be hypocritical, but that wasn't the purpose, was not to be consistent. It was to humiliate Trump.
Wow. Yeah, it is. It's one thing after another. You know, they definitely are out to get him. What did you think, Rabbi Spiro, about the midterm elections? Obviously, we really don't have a final result on Florida yet. But what did you think about the midterm elections generally? What does that mean for America, in your opinion?
Well, in terms of not having final results, when the Republican loses, then the result is immediately accepted. If the Democrat loses, then we have the situation where, no, the election isn't over. We're still counting and counting and counting forever. So I just wish the Republicans wouldn't be such naive people. They're so eager all the time to say, okay, we lost, like with Norm Coleman. Okay, we lost. Where the Democrats, they do this time and time again. If they lost, no. They didn't lose. The election isn't over. Not until we make sure that we have enough votes to declare victory. What did I think about it? Listen, it was much better than it could have been. It's in a certain way, like President Trump says, it was a historic victory. We did gain more in the Senate. But we did lose the House. And I understand that historically, you're going to lose the House in the midterm election. But it doesn't make me feel good to have lost the House. And what bothered me is, with the country seeing what these Democrats have done, and yet they don't apprehend it. So many don't apprehend it, and they vote for a Democrat candidate. And that bothers me. Don't they see after Kavanaugh and other issues, the Democrats are, so many of them, they're proposing socialism.
Do you think it was a win? Do you think it was a win for the media? I think it was the media showing that, yeah, we can still be effective if we completely trash Trump the entire time and lie about what he's actually doing.
And lie about Republicans and conservatives and evangelicals and Christians. And, lie about it all the time. Listen, it's always been a win for the media, almost my entire life. And I'm not young. It's always a win. It's people like you and I who follow politics. And it's not politics. It's a serious thing. This isn't just politics. This is about a philosophy. We know what's going on. But there are so many people who don't follow politics. So they only decide based on what the media tells them. And that's dangerous because we have a left-wing media. And also we have a whole segment of immigrants that are coming here that don't know of our founding principles and they don't believe in our founding principles. They're going to vote for whoever gives them more freebies.
You're exactly right. I really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure meeting you, Rabbi Ari Spiro, author of the book Pushback, Reclaiming Our American Judeo-Christian Spirit. I'd love to have you on again soon sometime, Rabbi.
Well, certainly.
All right. Well, you have a great rest of the week, okay?
Hey, you too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Rabbi Ari Spiro, everybody. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back in just a minute. Coming at the bottom of this hour, we've got State Representative Dan Sullivan going to stop by. Going to talk a little bit about the midterms. Also going to talk a little bit about this. I've got some committee audio here that you need to hear. Don't go anywhere.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Folks, welcome to the program. We've got State Representative Stephen Meeks is calling in from Faulkner County. That's district there, 67 he represents. Representative Meeks, thanks for joining us this morning.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, first off, Stephen, I want to talk about the Faulkner County Tea Party Luncheon, where, I was there last week. You were there as well. And I referenced the fact that you are always the guy who motions for adjournment. And now that has to do with seniority, right?
Right, yeah. Based upon tradition, the senior member of the House always does the adjourn motion.
Okay, so you're the senior member. You always do the adjournment. And so that actually means that you hold a record. Is that correct?
Yes, because that's the motion that gets...
Let's face it, times are tough for the Arkansas General Assembly. They're all waiting for the spotlight exposing public corruption to end, so they won't be under so much scrutiny. And during this time, what if you're a legislator and you need money? What if you're slapped with a huge expense? What if your check for consultant services is late this month? Or maybe you just need extra cash now until payday. When that happens, you can't wait. Hi, I'm Bobby Blackmail for the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank, your trusted source to over 135 lenders to get you short-term cash fast. Use the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank today, and you can have up to $12,500 cash in your checking account tomorrow. Dried up bribes no longer coming from Medicaid entities? Handled. Extra cash until your hopeful acquittal? Done. And you'll be surprised at how easy it is to get extra cash. Just be an elected official and be comfortable with the status quo, and we'll connect you with a fellow legislator who is ready to loan. It's quick and easy. And don't worry if you can't make the payments, because the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank is designed to help you get through these tough economic times. There are other ways you can pay off your debt, like by voting the way the establishment wants, or by rewarding some with committee chairmanships. So forget about overdraft fees and the spirit of covetousness that sometimes overwhelms the best of lawmakers. Just remember, the Arkansas Intra-Legislator Bank for short-term cash between colleagues when you need it fast.
Some transactions have long-term consequences.
Paul Harrell, parody.
Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Oh, come on. Yeah, all right. I've got, what is going on here? All right, sorry. I have State Representative Dan Sullivan in studio. We're going to be talking with him at 7:33, coming up here in 10 minutes. Before then, I want to reference back what I didn't get through at the top of the last hour, which is this article on the House of Representatives and how it's been changed forever. But before we do that, you guys got any people that you got to get Christmas gifts for, right? Well, now it's time. I know it's early. I mean, we're a week before Thanksgiving here. But Conduit News has launched a brand new store for you to check out all kinds of different items, right? Now, right now, today, we're kind of highlighting the different coffee mugs you can get, all right? Look at this one. This is just a normal American flag on your coffee mug. Says Conduit News on one side. What does it say on the back, Joe? And then it says Conduit News on the other. Real news, real insights for Arkansas. Let's go back to the Marble Palace mug. Get your Marble Palace coffee mugs today. There it is, the Marble Palace for your consumption right there. But first, taxes. Conduit News, real insights for Arkansas. Check this out. And then we got the Mother Government mug. What is that? What are those graphics? What is that? A baby's bottle, a baby rattle, and a pacifier. Check out the Premium Care Mother Government Conduit News mug. These are some of the phrases, parodies that we use, on the program. So check it out. It's right now up at conduitnews.com. This is a way for you to help us support the news that you hear every morning, and also give you a product that you want to consume and you want to drink your coffee out every morning. And people are going to ask, hey, what does Marble Palace mean? You'd be like, oh, well, that's just, this thing where politicians go down there to raise their taxes. And yeah, I mean, just it's gonna help things. So conduitnews.com, click on store and go there now. And there's other stuff on this. We're actually using this Zazzle page to help out with what we are doing, what we're trying to accomplish here. And there's other products as well. Matter of fact, if you scroll down from the mugs, you can find some other different mugs. There's one mug with my mug on it. Show them the mug. There's the mug. Show this. Throw this up on the screen. This is a Conduit News Radio with my face on it. I don't know who would want to drink out of that one. I don't know. Matter of fact, I'm gonna get some of these mugs and I'm gonna drink out because it's a morning show and I drink a lot of coffee. But I don't think I'll be drinking out of that. Don't you think that'd be weird? You see that on camera, me drinking out of my own face? It'd be a little weird. It'd just be a little weird. Okay, so David Ferguson writes about some interesting text messages that he found in a court document in the trial of Senator John Woods. It appears to be the reflections of Representative Micah Neal, who's also been convicted, as passed on to the FBI by his attorney. The message is from Neal's attorney to a special agent on January 13, 2017. It read this: with the new rules the House passed this week, you will see future speakers of the House go down in corruption charges. They placed all committee placement totally in the hands of the Speaker. I find it interesting, David Ferguson writes, the first thought of a legislator caught in corruption was that the new power given to the Speaker would be a corruption trap. Big lobbyists have always paid a lot of attention to whoever was in line to be Speaker. Now, especially with the Speaker being so powerful, big lobbyists would be stupid not to focus tremendous resources to get the Speaker they want. I like most of the lobbyists I knew, David Ferguson writes, but am mindful there will be others like Rusty Cranford who use bribery as a political tool. I have no reason to think Speaker Matthew Shepard will do anything other than serve without blemish. But if any representative comes under suspicion of corruption, whoever is Speaker will be investigated because of the appointments and assignments made by the Speaker. Perhaps that is a small price to pay for so much power. I don't see a way back to the notion of 100 equals in the House of Representatives in Arkansas. The system has changed forever, barring some huge scandal in the future. I'm being nostalgic, David Ferguson writes, because of the really great times I had working with both powerful and not so powerful legislators. I feel sorry for the less powerful legislators who have their own opinions and who will be run over by the machine. Also feel sorry for their voters. And then he's got a quote here. There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. The Beatles lyrics there. David Ferguson, again, writing this over at conduitnews.com, courtesy of Conduit for Action. And he's the former director of the Arkansas Bureau of Legislative Research, 32 years there as an attorney for the Arkansas legislature. After retirement from state service, his primary focus has been beef cattle farming. He is also a former officer of Conduit for Action. So that's up right now at Conduit News. And while you're there, again, go click on the store. It's not too early to go shopping for some Christmas gifts. That's what I would say. When we come back, we're going to talk to State Representative Dan Sullivan. Always great to have him on. Also, it was a pleasure. Wasn't it refreshing to talk or to listen to Rabbi Ari Spiro in that last segment? It really, really was. By the way, speaking of that last segment, do you know what Politico, now that this is crazy to me, Macron and Merkel are saying we need a European army now, and the Politico says that it's Donald Trump's fault. So this is not lost on you. It's not lost on the fact that it's kind of eerie and suspicious. Well, they're now blaming Trump. They're saying, well, if Trump hadn't have said that the French people would be speaking German if it wasn't for American soldiers, then he wouldn't have called for a European army. Are you kidding me, really? They got to blame Trump for literally everything. Back in a minute.
passed every day, and so I make, as you said, I make that motion, and so I hold the record for basically every General Assembly for being the representative who gets the most motions passed.
Well, there you go. I mean,
Yep.
and that's
It's an easy one, of course. But,
I know, but hey, that is you know,
someone's got to do it. Right?
If you wanted to be deceptive, you could put that on mailers, and people would be like, "Oh, wow, he gets things done." Anyway, I thought that was an interesting piece of trivia. Anyway, but I wanted to talk a little bit about back a couple months ago, or more than a couple at this point. You know, there was the appropriations process. You had the Joint Budget Committee's meeting, and well, just go ahead and tell us what. There was a problem, right? People were asking for way more money than they spent, right?
Right. So just a little bit of background for folks that are not familiar with the process. The appropriation process, what that does is that sets spending limits for state agencies and tells them, you know, what's the maximum amount of money they can spend in each category. And those categories are generally salaries, operations, conference and travel, capital improvements, things like that. And a lot of times what we were finding was that the amount of money that they spent was way less than the appropriation authority they were asking. So, for example, they may have spent, say, $1 million, just to keep the number simple. They may have spent $1 million on their operating expenses, but they were asking for $3 million worth of spending authority. And there is some justification sometimes for allowing some large caps like that. For example, the road department or the forestry department. This last summer, it was a relatively quiet summer. We didn't have a lot of wildfires in the state, and so their expenses were low. Next summer, that may not be the case, and there may be, you know, more wildfires, and so their expenses are high. And so we want to leave them a little bit of headroom there so that they don't have to come back to us and you know, for nickel and dime stuff, so to speak, for them to be able to carry out what their mission is. But we found in a lot of cases that that wasn't the case, that the appropriation spending authority levels were way more than what they were actually spending. Now, some people argue that, you know, the appropriation is not real money. The real money comes later in the Revenue Stabilization Act. But what the appropriation does, though, it allows the General Assembly to maintain control of spending levels. And so myself, Representative Dotson, and several of the other conservative members started saying, no, we need to get these appropriations more in line with what your actual spending is. And if something does come along, you know, a federal grant or whatnot, you can always come back to.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right. Welcome back to the program. We have in studio we got State Representative Dan Sullivan is back with us. Dan, thanks for being with us, sir.
Paul, good to be here, and I appreciate it. You know, I've been listening to your guests this morning. You've really gotten a lot of wonderful guests on your show.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And, you know, Conduit sometimes gets a pretty bad rap on things. But, you know, in the last election cycle, you had a lot of politicians on.
We did, yeah.
I wonder, why do you think you have you get the bad rap every once in a while for being this and that, but when it comes election time, the politicians gravitate right here to Conduit News.
They don't mind using the platform. I don't know. I think maybe, well, you know, they want to talk to voters. That's why.
Exactly.
That's what I think.
Exactly.
So we're talking to State Representative Dan Sullivan. Dan, you were recently. First of all, let's get your take. Midterm elections. What do you think? What was your general thought?
Well, oh golly, you know, I thought we held our own, but we didn't make any gains. I was hoping we would make some gains. We lost a couple of really strong members from the House. Representative Williams and Representative Collins were very instrumental, both out front and behind the scenes, in strong conservative legislation. And so we lost a couple of good folks, but the Democrats lost a couple of strong Democrats too. So you know, it's kind
Michael
of a
John Gray going down. That was not anticipated, I don't think.
No, it wasn't at all. And Representative Baltz from Northeast Arkansas,
two Democrats.
To a Democrat, yes, losing was really important. You know, it was almost important for me because it would have moved my seniority up a couple. But since that makes no difference anymore, it doesn't really help.
Well, so basically the balance of power in the House is the same. You lose 2 Republicans to Democrats, and 2 Democrats lose to 2 Republicans, and
Correct.
so it's the same makeup there, supermajority. That's
and I tell you, we've really got good leadership in the House now with Marcus Richmond and Brant Smith. You know, so thankful we got 2 strong conservatives in there, honest men. Who will work for our conservative values. So, I look forward to the session coming and look forward to what we're going to try to accomplish.
All right, so let's get some of this audio here. What is this audio, Dan? This is from Medicaid Subcommittee you're chairman of, right?
I'm chairman of the Medicaid Legislative Audit Subcommittee on Medicaid, yes. And we had heard some words to the effect of, we've had a glitch in a system, but don't worry about it. And, I heard the word glitch, and I just wanted to dig a little bit deeper.
What is the glitch?
Well, we run what's called a Paris match, like the city, and I think we may have talked about that on the show before. We run that yearly. It matches the Arkansas Medicaid recipients to Medicaid recipients in all 50 states. So then we get a report back, and that tells us how many people popped on or showed up on that report. It may be 30, 20,000 or so. And then we investigate and we find out how many are actually receiving Medicaid benefits, are listed as receiving benefits in multiple states. In 2017, we found 30-some thousand people. And we kicked off 25,000 and kept 7,000 who deserved it. We didn't run the report first quarter of 2018 nor second quarter of 2018. We ran the report third quarter. We just got the information back. It was a little over, right at 18,000 people. We've now started the investigation. We just got the results back, partial results back. We found so far of 18,000 people receiving Medicaid in multiple states, 10,000 should not have been on Arkansas's rolls. So we're kicking off 10,000. We found about a little over, I think, 2,500 who are legitimate in Arkansas, and we still have a couple of thousand more to go. Bottom line, we have at least 10,000 people that we have been paying Medicaid benefits to, or eligible for Medicaid benefits, over 10,000 people for right at a year now.
Wow.
And we have no way of knowing how much that costs us.
Wow.
We found that out this week. So at least 10,000 people got Medicaid, and we don't know if we spent zero on them or $1,000. We just don't know.
So we're going to go through some of this audio. We may not be able to get to all of it. I've got it sectioned off here. We're just going to start at the top. We're going to listen to this. This is back on the 11th of November.
Yes.
And then you can kind of tell us what this is about. Give us the context. All right, so go ahead, Joe, whenever you're ready.
Mr. Chair, you're asking a lot for 100% to go on that big of a change.
I'm only asking what you promised. In the last meeting, I asked you if we were 100% ready to go, and the smart people sitting behind you in a private meeting said we are 100% online, ready to go for sure. Well, are we still there?
To break some of this out, let me talk about the billing from providers.
Again, I appreciate it.
I'm not going to sit here and say we're 100%
I don't want to dig
into
everything. But I don't want to dig into the details of this. That's for public health.
Right.
I've been told we're ready to go. Are we or aren't we?
I want to say one of the things you're asking me, though, is on the billing, providers billing, and providers will not bill DHS directly. They'll bill to the PASS. And we do not establish the billing between the PASS and the providers. So whether I'm sworn in or not, I can't sit here and say that that's 100%
Okay,
ready
let me
to go,
respond to that, because the issue is not only the provider, it's the patient.
Yes, sir.
So if we're not able to, and we're at this as a team, and our legislative responsibility is not only to the business, but the greater responsibility is to the taxpayers who are paying for the system and to the beneficiaries who are receiving the services. So if this doesn't work, then the taxpayers have invested a lot of money in the system, and the patients are going to miss out on the services. So do you think we're ready for a successful launch or not?
I believe we're ready for a successful launch.
Okay, and you have letters, I think, from 3 passes or 2 passes that are requesting a delay until April.
They asked for a delay to April 1st, yes, sir.
And they have listed the same things I've listed here, and you think their concerns are, I don't want to say meritless, I'd like to, but do you think those concerns are, why would they be having those concerns when you don't?
Everybody would like to put things off a little bit. I'm never exactly ready to leave the house. When I leave the house in the morning, I have to go back and get my keys sometimes. And giving myself time, usually I end up walking out without my keys anyway.
All right, let's go ahead and stop.
So I can't sit here and say
I kind of figure out where that's going. We can kind of figure out where that's going. So that was, who was that you were talking to, Dan?
That was Kelly Link, who is the legislative liaison for DHS. And, we're getting ready to move into a managed care model. And there's more information breaking on this. I've got an email we may post on the Conduit website if you read it. But the people who are providing the services don't think we're ready to launch. They've asked for a delay. The DHS and the executive branch of governor met with the PASS and with the parents, and they say they're ready to launch and start this new managed care model. It's a tremendous change in how we've done business. There have been delays in information, but the bottom line is DHS is on record now as saying this is ready to launch successfully. Where Mr. Link and I disagreed was, the bottom line is we have a responsibility to our patients, the people who are receiving the services. A successful launch doesn't mean DHS has done all they can do. A successful launch means all the players, the DHS, the patients, the legislature, we're all ready to move forward together. That's the definition of success, not that DHS or the government is ready, but that the patients will receive a continuity of care that's in their best interest. And that date is January 1st, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Wow. We're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Cue up this next clip, but what is this next one about? And we'll get Dan to respond to it. Yeah, what does it say? It says, Hickey asked for a report about. Oh yeah, this is about. I think this is. I guess Hickey asking for 40 days. Yeah, go ahead and play this. 40 days.
Senator Hickey, go ahead.
Just short one. I want to make sure because we've said that we were doing this by around October 31st, and I know that there's a date. I believe that we've said that we should have an answer back from CMS on this stuff. Is it 48 to 50 days? Was that the number that was given? Something along those lines. Is that correct?
Okay.
Because what I don't want to happen is 50 days to roll up here and we're back down here doing this again. I just want to know, that is there a deadline or is that not reasonable? Just.
I'm sorry, thank you. In terms of what
all right, go ahead, stop.
We would expect.
Explain that. What is that? What is going on there?
Senator Hickey is the chair of audit, and we had an audit finding with $415 million that federal CMS said you can't account for this. So we broke that down, and DHS and Medicaid worked with CMS, Center for Medical Services, Medicaid Services, and they got it down to 28 million, close to 28 million, that we couldn't account for. And so I think early, and Senator Hickey mentioned it, early in October, we were told as an audit committee that we would have this 28 million resolved by the end of the month, that we had to submit a final report and it would be resolved. So this committee meeting that you're listening to happened on November 1st.
Interesting.
And they didn't have the information. So and that's what my subcommittee was also investigating. Mm-hmm. And all we were saying there is you told us it would be done by the 31st of October. It's not done.
Wow.
So when will it be done? And they pushed it back. Now, on DHS's behalf, if we owe $28 million, we don't want to pay it back if we don't have to.
Yeah, like back to the feds, you mean?
Yeah, we don't want to reimburse that money, just like I don't pay my utility bill until the 30th of the month. Mm-hmm. If I have on my taxes, I don't pay my taxes till the end. So to DHS's favor, they're working as hard as they can to save the state the $28 million that we really didn't have the accounting procedures in place to do that. Again, the committee is just asking for, what are you doing? Our role is oversight, and we want to know what you're doing, why you're doing it, and be sure that you're following the right procedures.
Especially when they give you a deadline, say this will be done, and then it's not done. That's got to be frustrating.
Exactly. And we were asked after the meeting, why is it that the legislature doesn't trust or the audit, and the legislature doesn't trust DHS? Well, if you've been here for a few years, you know why. Just like we were told that 18,000 people, we didn't run the Paris match, and oh, by the way, don't worry, Representative Sullivan, it was just a glitch. Nothing to see here. But until we dig into that,
they need to know as a state agency that this friction is appropriate. It's necessary.
Absolutely.
Joe, cue up the next one. What does the next one say, title? This is about the Paris match. Yeah. I want to listen to this. Listen to this.
Thank you.
This is Dan Sullivan here.
Part of where this originated with me particularly was when we had the Paris match and we failed to do those. I'm seeing that from my research, what I looked at, there were only, depending on the year, 3 to 6 states who don't participate in that. It's the norm that people participate in that Paris match. Would that be accurate?
Well, again, the Paris match, states came into it over time in large part based on how much they could invest in their computer systems. And when the federal government under the previous administration started offering a more generous 90% match on computer systems, you saw a much quicker uptake. And again, but a 10% match in Arkansas is still a lot of money. And I think it is fair to say states differed by their ability to put up their match. And in more recent years, we were better able to do that because of more generous match.
Stop right there.
When I've looked at that, I think...
All right, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, that's getting into, anytime government gets as big as it is, we are going to have these errors. And Medicaid is working as hard as they can to resolve those issues and those errors. But when you're managing 1 million people who are moving from one state to another, who have children that live with the mother here in Arkansas, live with the dad in Tennessee, and visit the grandmother in Missouri, and they're taking Medicaid benefits everywhere maybe they stay for 6 months or a year. So you have all of these changes and people rolling on and off of Medicaid. It is absolutely almost impossible for us to manage that. So when we have 18,000 people who are hitting in multiple states, it can't be a surprise to us when we expand government.
Yeah.
And Paul, I'm hoping...
So the government expands, and then you got to have the management, the oversight expand to try to make it happen.
Yeah,
so.
And most of the time we talk about the $500 a month for Arkansas Works, but there's also that management cost in there that's just tremendous. We heard, and I hope to get the tape, but I think we heard yesterday the first time that I've heard DHS and Medicaid say that the Arkansas Works program may have to take a second look, because as the state has to assume more liability, we don't have the money to pay for that. We built it up on 100% match, and just like Mr. Smith said in that tape, who's deputy director, I think, at DHS, just as we heard him say, people bought things because it was 100% free.
Yep.
You get more money from the feds, and we'll just take it.
Cue up this next clip here. We're going to keep going. Yeah, I think this is exactly what you're talking about the feds cutting the rate. This was an interesting exchange. Listen.
He talked about this as a no-interest loan. People saw this as a no-interest loan. And I know we're making some cuts in some of our programs now, and I support what we're doing. The work requirements, I'm glad to see us move in that direction. Essentially the state of Arkansas lived off of Medicaid with a 70-30 match. And we encourage, just as the previous administrations, encourage businesses to expand and take on clients and build businesses and build services on that. And now we are necessarily having to draw back on that. And I support what we're doing in that area. Is that what's happening nationally? Or nationally are people beginning to cut programs like our choices and our disability services, and we're scaling back, because it seems to me, because we're relying more on state money than federal money, and we have to do that to protect our budget. Is that an accurate assessment?
Mr. Chairman, you are right. As
You're the first one to say that on camera.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So, what was his response?
Yeah, what states were doing, states would take Medicaid money, federal money, and they would wash it around the state. The feds couldn't find it. When the feds did find it, it would be a year or two later. So they were getting millions of dollars in no-interest loans. Arkansas doesn't do that. But the fact remains that as long as we built our systems, particularly Arkansas Works, on 100% federal money, now they're scaling back, going to, I think it was 97, then now I think it's 4.4. It's going to 90%. We don't have the money to pay for the Arkansas Works programs unless we take the money from other programs. What other programs are we taking the money for? It appears we're taking the money from programs that were funded primarily by state general revenue. So programs for our disabled, programs for the elderly, rather than those programs get state money, which they always did, now that state money has to be used to pay for Arkansas Works. Hence, my understanding from yesterday's testimony by DHS, we're going to have to take a look at Arkansas Works because it's that state general revenue going there is to the detriment of very needy programs. We're using state
and
general...
DHS said this yesterday.
Well, I need to get the audio because it's a little bit cryptic, and we're going to have to dig into it and ask some questions.
Okay, I got you. One more clip, just one more clip, and then we'll get. We're here with State Representative Dan Sullivan. Just the next one in line there. Let's see.
As the federal match rate is declining, then the states do have to put up a larger share, and that's where you see them now trying to adjust their programs. So the match rate, we all know the match rate for the newly eligible population started at 100%. It's going down to 90% over time.
All right, stop.
But we have
we do have to go to break, but that's basically reiterating exactly what you just said.
Absolutely.
And so they're having to shift. You would say maybe the bill is finally coming due.
Yeah, making lemon aid out of lemons, it was spiked. And now we've been addicted to the federal money, and now it's coming back to us. And we're going to, the high was really good. We enjoyed the program, we enjoyed the build-up, but now it's coming due, and the bill is due, and we're going to have to pay it with state general revenue.
Yeah.
And that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and 10% of that whole is a lot of money to Arkansas.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
And other programs like the S-CHIP program for children, the feds paid 100% of that. It's going back, and they're cutting back on that. And again, we have a limited budget, so where do you get the money? From other programs. Other programs are going to suffer. Programs for our elderly, our senior centers, for our disabled, and our choices.
Wow. All right, State Representative Dan Sullivan, I appreciate you just trying to get to the bottom of things on that, that subcommittee there. That's
Thank
good
you.
stuff.
We're going to keep digging.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, the audio's there for itself. You can tell that they're trying to provide the adequate oversight. We're going to take a break, folks, and we're going to be back here in just a moment. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
And ask for approval, and that way it helps to keep the people's elected representatives in the loop of what's going on. And so we made a motion last time, and we got it passed, that said that if they wanted to spend greater than 10%, or they wanted spending authority more than 10% of what they had actually spent, that they had to start justifying that to us. During the fiscal session, we were, with some limited success, some of the conservatives, we were able to rein some of that stuff back in, but it always felt like the other members were asking permission from the agency. Hey, is it okay if we do this? Hey, if it's okay if we do this? And I'm thinking, we're the representatives. We don't need to be asking them for permission. We need to just do it and put it back in line. So we were able to get this 10% justification passed, and since we did that, the agency.
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parrot.
All right, folks. Hey, welcome back to the program. I want to remind you guys, go to conduitnews.com. We launched our new store today. And if you just click on store, conduitnews.com, click on store, you can get great mugs like this one, the Marble Palace mug, where picture of the dome of the Capitol, or there's that one. Anyway, there's all kinds of great mugs. We'd love for you to be drinking out of these mugs while you watch or listen to Conduit News Radio every morning. And there's also other stuff you can browse. There's the Mother Government mug if you'd like to have that one instead. Anyway, people will ask questions about it, and you can tell them.
Everyone buy the mug.
No, the mug. All right, anyway, we will see you tomorrow. And hopefully I'll be more on the mend than I am now as far as the bronchitis. I got bronchitis. Yeah, there's snow forecast for some areas of the state as well, so be careful. be careful. Keep the hands at 10 and 2. Watch out for ice. Arkansas, be safe.